The Peddars Way, 46 miles from Nettershall Heath to home next the sea in 3 days in July 2019. This was a special 3-day mum and son adventure, picking up where we left off 2 years previously when we sloshed our way to the finishing line of the Peddars Way on Nettershall Heath. What we hadn't bargained for was walking it on the 3 hottest days of the year when the temperature soared to 33 degrees. There were several occasions when we thought we might have to be stretchered out because the heat was so intense and heat exhaustion was dogging our heels. But somehow we soldiered and sweated on and made it to the coast. What should have been a relatively easy walk tested us to our limits. The Peddars Way is thought to be an ancient track dating back to the Bronze Age and is one of the 4 long-distance footpaths which collectively form the Greater Ridgeway, which runs from Lyme Regis to Hunstanton. It was developed into a military route by the Romans for policing the former Iceni lands in the wake of Boadicea's revolt, and its name is probably derived from the Latin word pedester, which means pedestrian. It is alleged to be the haunt of the ghostly hound, Black Shuck, who is said to roam the countryside of East Anglia. We saw neither hide nor hair of him, but it is quite possible that the heat kept him away. We did, however, experience ghostly shenanigans while we were staying in Castle Acre. Day 1, Nettershall Heath to Wotton, 14 miles. Picking up where we left off 2 years previously at the end of the Peddars Way and the start of the Peddars Way on Nettershall Heath. It felt like going from one extreme to the other because we ended our Peddars Way walk in torrential rain and started the Peddars Way in searing heat. Just a few miles into our walk and still in good spirits despite the heat. Thompson Water. Day 2, Wotton to Castle Acre, 16 miles. This was a much tougher day than our first day because we had left behind the relatively shady woods and lanes of the Brecklands and had moved out into the open farmlands which are characteristic of the countryside between Little Cressingham and Castle Acre. We heard later on that the temperature rose to 33 degrees that day. As we approached the halfway stage at North Pickenham, the only village and outpost of civilization on the entire day's march, we were desperately needing to replenish our water supplies. The village loomed like a mirage out of the heat haze as we staggered in, but to our consternation, both the shop and pub were closed. We were pretty desperate by that stage and started knocking on house doors to see if anyone could let us have some water, but got no response. We sat down dejectedly on a bench, realizing that there was no way we could go on without water. We actually thought we would have to bail out, but in a last-ditch attempt we tried knocking on another door, and someone opened it. What happened next was like an answer to our prayers. It turned out that the lady who opened the door was a kindred spirit. She noticed the pentacle which I always wear around my neck and immediately recognized a fellow soul. We had a great chat and she literally saved us by filling our bottles and platypus with ice and giving us all the water we could carry. Without her help, we could never have completed our final 8 miles that day. After our arduous 16-mile day, the charming Norfolk village of Castle Acre felt like a sanctuary. Ruins of the 12th century Norman castle, Castle Acre. There was a very peaceful, laid-back vibe here when we visited it in the evening sunshine. Castlelake Castle. And again Castlelake Castle. Day 3, Castlelake to home next the sea, 22 miles. The heat was already intense when we left our accommodation at 7 o'clock, and we carried gallons of water and a large bag of ice to help combat heat exhaustion. It didn't help that we hadn't had much sleep because our B&B was haunted and there was a violent thunderstorm during the night. This 22-mile stage, which runs as straight as a die all the way from Castlelake to the coast, simply has to be done in one go because there are literally no communities of any size along the whole path until you reach Ringstead, which is just 2.5 miles from the end. It is amazing to think that one can be so far away from civilization in a place like Norfolk, but that is exactly the reality of the Peddars Way. We were well kitted out with water and supplies as we prepared to embark on yet another day of searing heat, and we had developed various strategies for combating heat stroke, including soaking all our spare clothing in water to wear on our heads and necks. However, despite all our measures, we started to run low on water at the 15-mile stage. Once again, it felt like we were being watched over by angels, because help miraculously appeared in the guise of a water tap conveniently located on the wall of a house near Sedgeford. We knocked on the door to ask if we could use the tap, but when no one answered, we decided to help ourselves anyway, and amazingly, the tap provided just enough water to fill our bottles before running dry. The wildflowers en route were beautiful. I counted 80 different varieties. This is wild chicory, which has medicinal properties similar to those of the dandelion. In other words, tonic, laxative and diuretic. Like flax, its flowers open in the morning when it is sunny and close in the afternoon. The finishing post at home next the sea, after 22 very hot and sweaty miles. This is where the Peddars Way meets the North Norfolk Coast Path. Here I am at the end of the Peddars Way. Mum and son selfie. Another mum and son selfie with me sporting my soaked t-shirt hat on the beach at home next the sea. Lessons learnt. Our B&B in Castlelake was haunted. How to combat intense heat. Carry as much water and ice as physically possible for drinking and soaking spare clothing to drape over the head and neck. The Norfolk countryside along the second half of the Peddars Way is almost devoid of civilization. Black Shuck obviously doesn't like the heat,